Hello and welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Providence. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Jacob Van Lunen, and we are all set for the finals, where we've got Wang Yichen playing against Seth Manfield. Seth, clearly the more experienced professional player here out of the two, but Wang just had to get through Osip.
Yeah,
he just had to beat Osip to get here, a Pro Tour champion on his way in the top 8, so he has not had it easy himself. Now, as it turns out, we've got the black-green Delirium mirror. Now, the two lists are a little different from each other, but it is the black-green Delirium deck against another black-green Delirium deck, and it's not shocking to hear that, as there were 4 copies of it in the top 8 here in Providence, but still, it's really performed well.
Yeah, I mean, this deck has proven itself to be amazing. I've been so impressed with this deck. I played a lot with it on Magic Online. I was saying yesterday that the moment I started playing with this deck, I found it really hard to play anything else because it's just so much fun. You have so many different angles. It allows you to catch up when you're behind. Definitely one of my favorite decks in the format, if not my favorite deck in this new standard format. There's a big difference here between Wang and Seth's decks, though. Wang is not playing Grimflayer and is instead playing Sylvan Advocate.
Whoa, that is different.
Which is a very interesting take. The other big difference we're going to see here is that Wang has access to 3 copies of Tireless Tracker, and most of the other lists are playing 1, if any at all.
Well, Seth Manfield says, all right, well, I've got Grimflayers.
Yeah.
And he's already got one on the battlefield here, ready to rumble.
The one thing that's nice
Nothing
about
from Wang here? Okay.
Sylvan Advocate is that it actually wins that fight against Grimflayer when it's actually turn 2. So if there's not a removal spell involved, the 2/3 body will be able to trump that 2/2 body. So pre-Delirium, Sylvan Advocate is bigger, and then once you get enough lands, Sylvan Advocate again becomes bigger. Of course, not quite as strong at enabling Delirium.
All right, here is a Pilgrim's Eye now from Seth Manfield, who's sort of slowly working his way up the chain. He had a Grimflayer on turn 2, but picked up some dead weight, found itself in the graveyard. Then a Traverse also hit the yard for Seth. So he's already halfway to Delirium.
He's working his way up as we speak.
Indeed. And he's also going to fire off this Grimflayer into the red zone, though Wang has none of it. He's going to play Grasp of Darkness on it to send it to the bin as well. So,
yeah, and there's
Seth,
a card, Grasp of Darkness, that has been incredible in this new standard.
Card's been good.
Just probably the best removal spell in standard right now.
Yeah, it has to be, right? Okay, here's Transgress the Mind. And he hit a Murder or an Ishkana that he can take. There's also a Grasp of Seth's own, though no threat currently to fire it at, and a Forest, which he can't take. So Ishkana is going to get exiled. Not bad, not bad. And looks like Wang wants to leave up the Vessel of Nascency mana here so that he can be mana efficient as well. He's not facing any pressure right now, just a little Pilgrim's Eye.
And he's got to feel good about his spot. I mean, Seth just has a Pilgrim's Eye in play and reactive cards in his hand.
That's right. Yeah, and as such, Seth says, well, I guess I'll just attack with my Hissing Quagmire too then, and get you for 3.
He may as well.
Yeah, he may as well. He's not fooling anybody. And Wang's just going to take it, drop down to 17, and then crack that Vessel on end step. Let's see what he hits. Ooh, he's got some choices here. See a Kalatas there, as well as a Hissing Quagmire.
Yeah, now the thing about Kalatas is, while it is an extremely powerful card, he's playing against Seth Manfield, and he already cast Transgress the Mind and saw that he's leaving Seth with a Grasp of Darkness and a Murder. So Kalatas not matching up great against those cards.
That's right. So he's going to take a Liliana instead.
Which is great in this spot.
Looks fantastic. Though he would like one way to interact with his opponent's creatures, because, well, Seth has to tap out, but he does get to attack for 3. Or at least 2, I should say, because probably Pilgrim's Eye goes away.
I would assume that Wang wants to pick off that Pilgrim's Eye here.
And there she is, Liliana. Kill the Pilgrim's Eye. By the way, still no Delirium there for Manfield. There's a Traverse the Ulvenwald for Wang. This is interesting because Wang has to be pretty happy if Seth's play is, okay, fine, I'll animate my Hissing Quagmire and attack Liliana. That's going to take forever to get Liliana dead. Another 2 turns, and Wang gets to just generate value. Well, Seth does nothing. So, not a bad spot here.
And Seth, we know he has 2 reactive cards in hand, neither of which interact with that Liliana.
And he is, in fact, firing up the... Okay, well, there's a decent draw. He fired up the Hissing Quagmire, attack for 2, but that left him a land drop and just enough mana to play Grim Flayer, which, again, is still on 2/2 mode. He's got Sorcery, Artifact, Creature, but he's 1 short from Delirium. But still, nice little threat.
I feel like Wang's pretty happy with this situation, though, because he's able to get that Grim Flayer down to 0 power now with his Liliana, the Last Hope. And I believe he has an instant speed removal spell that he will then be able to use to get the land off the table.
Well, looks like he just used it to kill the Grim Flayer.
Interesting.
Maybe he has another one.
Does he have a
That'd be pretty
Quagmire of his
disastrous.
own?
He does have that as well. He could
so
trade
he could
Quagmires.
Trade Quagmires.
Interestingly, that would get Seth to Delirium. He also could just have another removal spell and just sort of dare Seth to fire up that Quagmire here. It's pretty bad for Seth if he goes animate, attack, and Wang's like, sure, grasp that too, or murder that.
Yeah.
It sets back Seth pretty significantly.
Yeah, because then Wang is able to start using Liliana to actually generate cards.
Right.
And when Seth has these 1-for-1 removal spells in his hand, if your opponent is generating free cards off a Planeswalker that's just sitting in play,
You could just overpower that.
yeah, you just eventually overwhelm them.
Seth doesn't want to do this. He's very hesitant, but he's going to do it. Let's see if Wang does have another answer, or if he's just going to have Liliana take 2, or if he wants to trade off for his own Hissing Quagmire. Interestingly, Seth, with all of these basic lands, is not able to leave up a Grasp of Darkness mana to even threaten that. And it looks like Wang may just want to trade here. Maybe not.
Yeah. Wang also has...
he has To the Slaughter in his hand.
Which is pretty nice. He also has Emrakul, Promised End, in hand.
Ooh.
And if we've learned anything about these green-black mirrors over the course of the weekend, it's that games often end when that card is cast.
Absolutely. We have seen that very consistently.
Yeah, so I'm going to get this Kalatas back to hand. And he knows that Seth has 2 removal spells to deal with this, but that's fine. I mean, now he just got that card for free off the Liliana, so he's going to get to trade basically Seth's whole turn, because Seth only has 2 black mana, for a card that he was able to just put into his hand by pointing at his Liliana, the Last Hope.
That's right. Yeah, not a great position here for Seth.
Does find a 3rd black mana.
Okay, well, now that he's got Delirium, thanks to that Hissing Quagmire dying, he's going to play Ishkana, and that's pretty nice.
Yeah, that is pretty nice. I mean, the one issue is that he is allowing his opponent to untap with Kalatas.
That is an issue.
Yeah.
That is an issue.
That can often cause some big problems.
Even this Blighted Fen can be an issue.
Yeah.
Starting to get Kalatas rolling.
That seems like a pretty nice one in this format that we haven't seen much of.
Yeah, we haven't seen it this weekend. Take a look at Blighted Fen if you remember that one. Uncommon. From BFZ. Nice little spell land.
Yeah,
Time that thing right, and you
something.
can get something very significant with it. Now, you do get to play these things that they're only playing 2 colors in this deck, and we've seen decks that are 3 and even 4 colors this weekend. They can't really afford to play cards like Blighted Fen or even like a Westphale Abbey, those type of cards. But you know, when you stick to 2 colors, you can reach out a little bit and play some colorless lands like Blighted Fen.
All right, so Kalitas attacking now. And if I'm Seth, I pretty much assume that there has to be some sort of instant speed trick up Wang's sleeve here.
So Seth is deciding, do I want to force him to use it here?
Yeah.
Or do I just take it, or maybe just chump with a spider? Or none of these options feel very good to me.
No, and I mean, the problem also is that if Wang does have some sort of removal spell, then he's also going to be generating zombies.
Right.
On the Kalitas.
Oh, yeah, this is just bad.
And it kind of stretches Seth's resources pretty thin because, you know, his hand's just full of these spot removal spells. And while those can get Kalitas off the table, then they're just going to be zombies left over that do a good job of giving Wang the time he needs to cast his Emrakul, the Promised End.
Seth is at 20 life. He absolutely could just take the hit here. You know, his life total is not under immediate pressure, but he knows that he can't just do that forever, so looks like he's lining up a block. All right, well, he's just like, look, I'm going to assume you have a removal spell, and you're going to get me if you do, but I'm going to minimize the damage, not throw away an extra spider or 2 in the process here.
Ooh, is this just a bluff?
Just traded for a spider?
Yep. Wow. Cannot say I saw that coming.
Wang's deciding what he wants to target with Liliana. Was he bluffing?
I think he was. He probably thought to himself, okay, well, I mean,
he already had a creature in the graveyard, right? That wasn't him trying to work up to Delirium.
Oh, maybe he didn't have a creature in the graveyard. That's the only thing that makes sense to me.
It's hard to see from this angle. I would assume that he already did, but there's a chance he didn't, which makes sense.
Yeah, he hasn't played a creature yet, has he?
Maybe not. Yeah. All right, well, then that makes good sense, right? He needed to get to Emrakul this turn. And it worked.
It did. Oh, wow.
So the draw step for Seth Manfield, the turn that Wang Yichen is controlling, was another grasp, and his hand is 3 removal spells.
Yeah, I mean, he only has 2 black mana at the ready, though, so...
I think he has 3, right?
Yeah, well, only enough to cast one of these spells.
Sure,
rather.
they're all double black?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. So he's going to murder Ishkana, eat a spider with Emrakul, and pass the turn back. I mean, as it sits, Seth really has nothing going on here. Even combining multiple removal spells doesn't get the job done here.
Yeah, and I mean, Emrakul actually has protection from instants.
Yeah, I can't even touch anyway. Like, he's that far away. Well, he found a Mind Rack Demon. That doesn't do anything anyway.
Yeah, not very exciting here, Mind Rack Demon.
No, Emrakul could clean this up in 2 turns. If Seth doesn't come up with something, and very, very quickly. Yikes. Wang Yichen doing good work here in the finals. On the verge of earning game 1 against Seth Manfield.
Ooh, that's a pretty good pickup. Tireless Tracker.
What did he get, a Tireless Tracker? It's nice.
He knows Seth has plenty of removal spells that are going to deal with that. But the nice thing is that he can play it alongside a land, and it doesn't give Seth an opportunity to use a grasp. Obviously, on this turn, Seth doesn't have the mana, but in future turns, and he can start using different ways to get back the Tireless Tracker. And each time he does that, he's going to be generating a card, whereas Seth's going to be spending a card and not getting anything for it.
No.
You notice how many times we've said that about what Wang has been doing this game?
No kidding. So Emrakul, the Promised End, gets in for the full 13, dropping Seth down to 7. And there's a Tireless Tracker and the land. He still has Liliana.
I would expect that Liliana ticks up targeting the demon.
You called it. This could be the last draw step of game one here for Manfield.
I mean, even Grasp of Darkness now for Wang would be good enough because he could get the spider out of the way and then use his Blighted Fen to kill the demon and then attack for lethal.
Yeah, he actually only needs to get either creature out of the way anyway, and then he's got lethal. But if Seth gets to block with both of them on Emrakul, he will actually just go to one.
The Blighted Fen means that's probably not going to happen.
Exactly. Well, got a little more. They can now.
That's true, they can. Well, Liliana's there.
Yeah, so Liliana kills the Pilgrim's Eye.
Yeah.
Blighted Fen kills anything. The most toughness Seth can have is 5, and he's attacking for 13 at 7.
So, -1.
Nice playing against you. And you can see how quickly Wang Yichen is playing. I think he sees the line here. Seth representing Grasp, but as you mentioned a minute ago, that doesn't do anything here. This game should be in the books. Oh, interesting. Wang just attacked, so he's actually going to give Seth an extra draw step, it looks like.
Oh, wow.
I mean, Wang realistically is so far ahead that it shouldn't matter, so he's going to sack this, but that's still 7, right? He's just going to do it all now. Okay.
I don't think that's 7 anymore, right? It's 6. Put Seth down to 1.
Yeah, either way, though, Seth lives.
Yeah, he could have just picked up the Liliana and end the game, but
he did not see it. Okay, so this gets interesting now. Again, you know, Wang looks like he's in a great spot. It's not that. It's just you really want to close the door against the Seth Manfield when you have the chance to close the door against Seth Manfield, because, man, he will take advantage of any little edge you give him. Now, passing the turn back here means he's dead.
Yeah, I mean, the protection from instance part of
it just rules out everything. So that means that Wang does, in fact, take game 1. That extra draw step from Seth did not yield anything of consequence.
And because he had the Advocate, it couldn't have even. Because even if Seth had an Emrakul of his own, he would just end up, dying.
Getting swarmed by 2 or 3 creatures.
Yeah, precisely.
Okay, well, that's going to do it for game 1. Players are now going to consult deck lists and then get to their sideboards. You can take a look at our feature match area here. What excitement. It's very tense over there, by the way. It is. I really like to take a minute when I can, when I'm not in the booth, to go over there and watch the games for a while, because it feels different from over here. You know, we're 100 feet away. We're not that far away from them, but, we got headsets on. We're looking at them on a monitor that's just a computer monitor like what you have at home, and it feels different. You can sense, I got to watch Osip talk a little bit to Wang. Nothing, he was just,
Any needling?
Yeah, like at one point, Wang was in the tank. He had played an Emrakul against the red-white vehicles deck. So things aren't looking great for Osip. And he draws the card for Osip, so he's looking at it and he's like poking around at his lands and kind of figuring out how he wants to, destroy his board the best. And Osip's like, "You done?" and Wang's like, no, not done. We are not done here. But, Osip was joking with him, of course.
It gets really tense once you get down to these final rounds.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, the winner of this match, $10,000.
Yeah, and it's also just kind of an accomplishment. And I know Seth has won these before.
Seth has.
But even having won them before, it doesn't make the next one feel less important.
No, it doesn't. And the interesting thing that I always like to note with this stuff, Jake, is how hard it is to actually win a tournament.
Yeah.
Which sounds weird, right? I mean, Seth's been playing Magic for years and years, and he's been playing at a high level. He's won 3 GPs and then also Worlds. But he's the exception. Most even very seasoned players, don't have a lot of wins on their record, if any at all. Even some of the best players, you think of the best players out there, and you look at their records and you're like, wait a second. You've been trying to win a GP or a PT. Those are the two high-level events, right? The two highest-level professional level events for Magic. For 15 years, you have not won one. Which kind of makes me glad that we tend to judge things, in terms of top eights and that kind of thing, because I think it's a more nuanced look at gaming.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, it's like, God, wait a second. You've been playing pro Magic for 10 years and you never accomplished your goal of winning a major tournament. It's that rare. And these are not, these are, look up some of your favorite players' resumes and you'll be like, wow, wait a second. It's crazy. It's crazy how hard it is to actually take home the trophy and win one of these things.
Yeah, they're
Unless
well
you're
over
Seth
1,000
Manfield.
people.
Yeah.
Every single one of these things.
Pushing 13.
Yeah.
Pushing 1,300 players here. And
only one is going to hoist up that trophy at the end.
One person gets to go home happy.
That's less than 1/10%.
Yeah.
The people who showed up.
Right. And even when you take into consideration that like a professional Magic player is going to have a pretty big edge over the field, right? If you're 0.5%, if everybody plays exactly the same, if you're a professional Magic player, what are you, 1%? 1.5%?
Maybe.
You can quarrel about the numbers, but you're not 10%. You're not winning 1 in 10 GPs that you play.
Even if you've completely broken the format and your deck is unfair.
Yeah.
Like that you made a deck that just beats the format silly. That, nobody else has a better deck than you. And nobody else can play as well as you. You're still not hitting that 10% number.
No, not to win. Now, but like I said, the cool part about Magic is that I think early on, Magic players realized that while winning is the ultimate goal and should be rewarded heavily, and it is. You get $10,000 for first at a GP here. That's way, way more than you're getting for eighth. Yeah. But we still recognize, for the purposes of figuring out who's been successful over the long term, a relatively arbitrary number with 8, but still that does seem to work. You're still in the real upper tier of a 1,300 or even a 2,000 player tournament if you're in the final 8 players. And that is a real significant accomplishment, and I'm always thankful that we look at it that way. Even though I will admit, I value wins very highly. Like when it comes to Hall of Fame voting and that kind of stuff, you're here to win, right? Like that's the whole point of this thing is winning a tournament, and we should reward people who do that.
I absolutely agree with you.
Thankfully. So does Wizards. They're like, here, $10,000. So they also agree. The cool part, too, the one thing I really like about this, about the way that the top 8s go is, if you get into the top 8, you're qualified for the Pro Tour here. And, for somebody like Seth, that doesn't mean a lot. He's well qualified. Right. But, for Wang Yichen, he may not have been qualified coming into this tournament. And he gets to kind of stepping stone his way up where it's like, all right, sweet, I'm going to Dublin. I saw Osip was tweeting, we'll see you in Dublin. He's really excited to be back on the Pro Tour. But there's more work to do. I'm excited
for him to be back on the Pro Tour.
Yeah, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and, it's worth noting that, you've performed well enough here. Let's see how you do against the best players in the world. You get that opportunity now. You've earned that opportunity.
All right, we are ready for game number 2. Seth Manfield on the play this time, which he was in the first game as well. He's the higher seed. Manfield came in the 3rd seed. Wang was actually the 8th seed, so he's not going to be on the play in any of his games. But that has not stopped him. And he's got a Sylvan Advocate to start things off, and a lowly Pilgrim's Eye here from Seth Manfield's not going to be doing a whole lot of blocking.
I kind of like that he came in, he squeaked in the top 8 and 8th. Was forced to be on the draw in every single one of his matches. It's an aggressive format. Being on the play is very much rewarded, and it hasn't mattered. Here he is in the finals, up a game against a world champion, having just beaten a Pro Tour champion to make it to the finals.
All right, Wang's going to kick things off with an attack for 2, knocking Seth down to 18. What else does he have? Ooh, another Sylvan Advocate. Okay. This reminds me of last season's standard. A nice quick start here for Wang.
And those 2/3s actually match up pretty well against what people are doing.
Yeah.
And Vigilance, I think, is, also understated in this format. The fact that those Thraben Inspectors that everyone is playing, like, you're not trading hits with those. those are just brick-walled forever.
Yep.
Here at Grand Prix Providence, please come up to registration and register.
Yeah, it's a bold move from Wang. He's not playing Grim Flares in his green-black Delirium deck. Instead, he's playing the Sylvan Advocates, but they seem to be performing pretty well for him. On the other side of the table, though, Seth is the one. He is playing Grim Flares in his build.
For what it's worth, I think the vast majority of people who played Green Black Delirium this weekend were playing Grim Flares.
Absolutely.
I think Wang is definitely the exception.
He is. I don't think I saw anybody else on Advocates in the feature match, that we covered.
Yeah, I saw some lists that were playing like 1 or 2, and it's probably just so they could have more 2-drops. I don't think it has much to do with. I don't think they thought it was better than Grimflare, and Wang definitely did.
Are they at odds with each other when you deck build? Can you just jam 4 of each?
Yeah, maybe you just do.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
It's kind of interesting. Anyway, Seth, under assault here, he's actually going to fire off a block and then a murder on the other one. He's going to take 0 damage this turn, though. He did lose the Pilgrim's Eye, which is often not bad. That immediately got him Delirium. He just put an instant, a creature, and an artifact in the graveyard to join the sorcery he already had, and boom, he's at Delirium. Well, speaking of boom, here's a Tireless Tracker for Wang, who immediately plays a land.
Yeah, and that's another big difference between Wang's deck and the other Green-Black Delirium decks we've been seeing. Most of them have 1 copy of Tireless Tracker, if that.
And how many is Wang running?
Wang's running 3 copies of Tireless Tracker.
Ooh.
Yeah, and in a matchup like this, where a lot of it is just, 1-for-1 removal, when you're playing Tireless Tracker and then playing a land, even if they kill your Tireless Tracker right away, you've already netted a card in that trade. And if they let you untap and play another land, then you're 2 cards ahead. And eventually they're going to have to kill it. So it just matters how many turns you've had it in play, how many lands you've had an opportunity to play since you've played it. Because each one you do, you're getting 1 card ahead in that card-for-card war that the Green-Black Delirium mirror often ends up being.
All right, Seth's been behind. Well, it's got to be said for most of this match so far. Game 1, he found himself behind, never was really able to dig out, and then Emrakul finished things off for Wang. Now, Seth is again behind. He's making plays. He's using up his mana. It's not like he's doing nothing, but Pilgrim's Eye doesn't have a big effect on the board. It's kind of a slow card, and Wang's able to apply some pressure here.
Yeah, worth noting also that a lot of these Green-Black mirrors we've been watching have really come down to who is able to cast Emrakul the Promised End first.
Sure.
So even with Seth seemingly pretty far behind here, I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to cast the big spell first and win the game as a result.
Okay. We'll keep an eye out for that as we work our way through the game. Wang looks like he's trying his hardest to keep the pressure up on Seth. Seth is maintaining his life total the best he can. We saw him chump block with the Pilgrim's Eye last turn, use a removal spell on one of the Sylvan Advocates. To remain at 18 life.
So Wang here still deciding what he's going to get back there.
Yeah, he decided to go for a Hissing Quagmire. Or maybe that's a Marsh.
Did he forget to make a clue?
Yes.
Oof.
Ugh, that's a bummer, man. Travesty of value. I hate seeing that.
Ugh, that's rough.
He still has one from before. That was from the turn that he played the tracker, but yeah, I think he whiffed on that one. Now we'll see if it comes back to bite him.
This is a very high pressure match. I mean, here he is. He's playing against the world champion from last year. It's not like he's just starting to sweat now. Last round, he just had the pleasure of playing against Osip Levodovic. Nobody makes you sweat more than that.
Oh yeah.
He's talking to you. He's trying to put you off your game, and then you carry that into your next match. It's not something that you can just shake off that easily.
No. He's Wang, when this whole thing's over, he can take a minute. I know he's got his friends with him are on the rail as well, but yeah, he has not really had much of a break here running through the gauntlet, and perhaps his hardest challenge yet. Seth Manfield awaits. Seth is resolving a grapple with the pass now, and as usual, is thinking about what he wants to do. It looks like he's found... Whoa. Swamp. Oh, he changed his mind. Grimflare. But that's not going to affect combat here. He's still getting attacked for at least 3 damage, or excuse me, 5 damage. And he has to decide if he wants to chump. No, he's not. And is Wang going to sacrifice that clue, or does he have something else to do with the mana? No, take 5. So that's going to put Seth down to 13. Things are getting interesting here.
Very much so. I mean, again, in a lot of ways, this matchup can be a race to Emrakul the Promised End. And Wang, you know, missing an extra card in a matchup where everybody's playing grass and murder and all of this, that can be a real big problem if things go long enough.
Yeah, you know, if Seth starts playing a bunch of Ishkanaz or whatever where it gets into true grind mode, an extra card can really come back and get you.
Both players have an extra copy of Emrakul the Promised End to bring in for post-boarded games.
Seth brought in a couple of pick the brains against his last opponent, though his last opponent was not playing black-green. Oh, there's my guy, Noxious Gear Hulk. Love that card, and it's going to take down a Tireless Tracker and even put Seth back up to 15. So now Wang has something to deal with. Nice big 5/4 with Menace. Card's so sweet.
Yeah.
I want an excuse to play more of those.
Look, its arms are like scimitars.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the coolest ever.
By the way, the chat said I should go as Noxious Gear Hulk for Halloween this year.
All right, well, I want
You
pictures.
said no. Chat said yes.
I mean, it just seemed like a lot of work to me. You know, that's a difficult costume. That's a lot of effort.
Yeah,
Are you you're friends with Christine, right? She could probably make it happen.
Yeah, I don't think I would do that to her. She worked so hard on her on her own cosplays that like asking her to do another one's probably too much. All right, well, this is pretty nice, and maybe a slight weakness when it comes to Noxious Gear Hulk. It does die to Grasp of Darkness. Now, you can't be sad with that transaction if you're Seth. It was still a straight-up 2-for-1 and a pretty important one as well. Though, you know, when your 2-mana removal spell kills your 6-drop, that is a little bit of a bummer. In the meantime, Wang Yichen really asserting himself here. He attacked for 4 and played Liliana.
And we'll see you next time.
And that's into an empty board of Seth Manfield.
Yeah, and not only that, but this Sylvan Advocate, now that it is bigger and badder, it's also pumping those hissing quagmires on Wang's side of the board, which means that he can make short work of Seth. Seth's dead in 2 turns.
Yeah, that's a ton of power coming over. And what you see here is Seth digging through his graveyard, probably getting his full Delirium count. He may have an Emrakul in hand already.
And he's going to need it.
Let's see what Seth has here. He's got options.
I don't believe he traversed for it. And post-board, he does have 2 copies. I'm sure he's bringing the other one here.
Magic players that were in the Super Sunday series, may I please have Miles W, Jason
This is
L, and
clearly a very important juncture in the match here. Seth taking his time and really trying to plan out how the heck do I get out from under this pressure that Wang Yichen has me under. What's the game plan that's going to actually win him the game?
And I think that game has got to involve Emrakul the Promised End. Yeah.
All right. Well, here's a traverse. Let's go. Let's see if that's what he grabs. You know, another option could be to get an Ishkanah. He has the mana to cast it right now.
Yeah, and I mean, he might already have the big spell in hand.
True. Yeah, so he's going to get an Ishkanah now. That doesn't necessarily tell us that he has it, but it is a hint.
Yeah.
And that is going to let him cast that immediately. Though I will say that Wang Yichen has put together a pretty nice assault force here, especially when you consider that those hissing quagmires are going to be 4/4s. You know, it really does make life difficult. Also, Death Touch pretty good against the little horde of 1/2 blockers.
Yeah.
Make sure that you clean those out.
Liliana, not quite as impressive now. I mean, This game has really gotten gummed up at this point.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what Wang's intentions are here. Looks like grapple is going to be the first thing he plays. Oh, there was a Nissa in there.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting.
It's a pretty good card.
Though, not able to grab that one with a grapple. He's going to get his own copy of Ishkana, though.
Nissa seems really good in this matchup. As Planeswalkers generally do.
Well, I can see Wang's hand pretty well. He does have an Emrakul in his hand, though it seems like he's a little far off from casting it. Perhaps Nissa got him another turn closer.
Yeah, I mean, he is about to miss a land drop from the looks of things, too, though.
Okay.
Which is definitely not where he wants to be.
Murder Ishkana. Shrink down a spider. Attack for 4. So Wang is just taking the grind approach here, just trying to whittle away at Seth Manfield's board. Seth looks like he may chump with the spider that got stared at by Liliana for a little too long. And there's Evolving Wilds for Manfield. Manfield has to be getting close to Emrakul here, right?
I think this next turn is when we're going to see it.
Do you think he has 6 types? He's already got 7 lands. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a Pilgrim's Eye in there, which gets one of the tricky ones. You see the Evolving Wilds.
Sorcery and instant. I don't know if you have an enchantment or a planeswalker yet, but...
Yeah, we're at 5. He needs an enchantment or a planeswalker, though, if he's going to cast it. He also could just play a land.
That'll do.
Let's see what Seth comes up with. You said it. You said, look, if he might fall behind in the early game, but if he can be the first one to resolve Emrakul, that could buy him the game right back again.
Absolutely. And that's the thing about this matchup, is that that big finish is oftentimes how this game will end.
Yeah, such an incremental game leading up to that, and then it's just like smash everything with an Emrakul.
It's like the game show where there are all the prior rounds you're trying to win, and you have to win them by a whole lot. Otherwise, the last round just makes...
Yeah, it's always just the bonus round.
Yeah.
All right, well, that was not Emrakul from Seth. He's got a Transgress to Mine. Decent shot. He doesn't have it in his hand yet. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's definitely
He
a
could have got
possibility.
it with Traverse last turn, but decided to get, or 2 turns ago, but instead decided to get the Ishkana.
He might just need an 8th land also. We're not exactly sure the number of card types in
But
his
this
graveyard
is
at
a big deal because Emrakul, the Promised End from Wang, just got exiled to that Transgress. Seth slowly working his way to victory? Question mark. Grim Flare from before. And there's a Vessel, and he's got the mana to crack it as well. So a very positive, fruitful, efficient turn there from Seth. But he is still facing down a Liliana as well as Sylvan Advocate with 6 lands.
All right.
It's going to plus Liliana. This is getting interesting. She's already at 6 loyalty.
Yeah, I think
Is he just going to take the defensive here, try to go for that ultimate maybe?
I think that really should be his game plan at this point, especially if he has any... Like, he has Ishkana in hand. So he can kind of shields up.
Oh, that gets really interesting. Just hide behind the spiders.
And there are definitely things that can go wrong, but
Yeah.
he doesn't have the big spell in his hand anymore. So he kind of has to hope that Seth doesn't have one either.
Okay, there we go. Ishkana Graph Widow. I'll be over here with Liliana, and this, again, it reminds me of last season. No Emrakul's in that pile. So let's count here. 3, 4, 5, 6.
That is enough.
He's going
If he has.
to pick the Mind Rack
card.
Demon and let those forests go. Let's see what he's got. Uh-oh, this looks like an Emrakul. There it is,
Yes, it
Emrakul, the promised end. And this is going to get ugly here. Let's see what havoc he can wreak.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of creatures in play here, so.
Yeah, this is going to get kind of ugly. There's a To the Slaughter there from Wang, which dictates target player rather than target opponent.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And I mean,
And-
considering the Liliana.
Right. So Seth gets to choose in that case, as he's acting as both Wang Yichen and himself. So he can cast it, target himself. That is, Wang casts it, targets himself. And then he can also pick which ones to sacrifice, which would be Liliana and either the Graph Widow or the Advocate. That's gross.
That is completely disgusting.
That must have been what Wang was thinking about, whether he wanted to actually cast Ishkana. Because if this was going to happen, he could fire off that To the Slaughter and have his hand be Ishkana land, but not get completely destroyed by this.
This is a really
To the
cool
Slaughter.
line that Seth took here. So Seth animated the Hissing Quagmire,
Okay.
then used the plus ability of Liliana to make it have 0 power.
Huh.
Then he used To the Slaughter to make Wang sacrifice the Sylvan Advocate and the Liliana. Now, because there's no more Sylvan Advocate, the Hissing Quagmire went from being a 4/4 to a 2/2, and because of the Liliana activation, it became a 0/1. So now he can just block that Hissing Quagmire with a Spider token and kill a land from Wang. So Wang now
Whoa.
doesn't even have access to Emrakul in his following turn if he wants to follow up and try to do the same thing if he draws one off the top.
I do think that's what he wants to do.
Wow.
What did he find? A Traverse?
That's pretty good, right?
It is definitely pretty good. Is it good enough?
I don't know if it's good enough.
Like, can he set up his own Emrakul is what I want to know. You said he brought an additional one out of the sideboard, right?
Yeah, I believe both players brought an additional one on the
Okay,
sideboard.
because remember, one did get exiled
Yeah.
to a Transgress the Mind.
It would very much surprise me if... Oh, Ishkana. That's what he's searching up here.
Well, that's not very exciting.
No.
Not when you're facing down a 13/13 flying trample. He's out of cards as well. Seth Manfield at 7, but looking pretty stable and with a mighty attack force in the air.
Yeah, this is a gigantic monster that Seth has flying in here. And that transgressed the mind, taking the 13/13 out of Wang's hand, giving Seth the opportunity to be the first one.
And probably the last one this game to cast that card.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good for him.
Yeah, Wang has a surprising amount of attackers on the battlefield, especially when you remember the Hissing Quagmires back there. So Seth does need to be marginally careful. And he's going to run through the scenarios now of, okay, if I attack with Emrakul, you draw a removal spell, kill my Grimflayer, and still have mana to maybe fire up the Hissing Quagmire, then what happens? And he's decided, you know what, things look good. I'm going to attack, drop you down to 6, play a Mind Rack Team, and and then pass the turn. It's just going to be incredibly difficult for Wang to get through. May be able to survive another turn by throwing Spider after Spider in front of Emrakul. He's got a lot of toughness there with reach, but...
Yeah, 15 points of toughness reach on his side of the table.
Yeah, but it just
only
doesn't look
17
good
points
enough.
of flampling power.
Oh, you know what? Never mind. He's having none of it. Wang's just going to attack with everything. I think he figures, okay, this one's done, but there's really no downside to me just turning everything sideways. See if Seth misclicks.
Oh, wait. Does he have enough to activate Ishkana?
He does. Is it enough to kill?
Yeah.
It is enough to kill Seth, and
I
it is
can't believe
the
I didn't
game.
even see it. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, he had exactly enough with the land that he needed, plus Ishkana. Wow, that was out of nowhere, and that does it.
Man, I love me an Ishkana activation. That's a sweet way to win the finals.
That was a sweet way for Wang Yichen to take down GP Providence. That's going to do it for the finals. Hello there. Welcome back to the booth here at Grand Prix Providence at Jacob Van Luden. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. And a little bit of left field there. I was like, wait. He's tapping all that mana. That's game.
Yeah.
Wow. Fantastic stuff.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I thought he was just doing the desperation attack. I'm like, wait, he actually has 7 mana here.
Like,
and he actually has 7 spiders as well. He needed every bit of what he had there to make that work. But he saw it. He had it. And Wang Yichen is our champion. We knew that Black Green Delirium was going to win the GP, though we didn't know which version was going to win. You know, once we got to the finals, we knew that they're going to be there. But there were 2 distinct versions here, one of them running Grimflayer and one of them looking a little bit more old school with more tireless trackers and for Sylvan Advocate and no Grimflayer.
Yeah, and I was really surprised there. The extra damage from those Sylvan Advocates and from the lands and whatnot, all of that ended up adding up to be exactly lethal with that Ishkana activation.
That
on
was
the very last turn of the game.
close.
And I've never seen a game of that matchup where one player was able to cast Emrakul the Promised End and lose. And I've been playing that deck online like a lot this week. So the fact that the first game I saw where that trend had been broken was the final game of the finals of the Grand Prix.
It's insane.
Incredible.
Yeah, if it's crazy because if Wang had 1 fewer spider, right? He attacked with everything. I think one of them got through and then he activated, but even 1 fewer, and he could have got through and the activation wouldn't have done it. Weird. It actually came down to Seth somehow not having enough removal of all things in this with that deck, which is just absurd to me, just because it has so much even post board. But great stuff. And it looks like, you take a look there at our champion. Look at that. He's got that TJ Collectibles scarf going here. Thanks again, of course, to TJ Collectibles for running Grand Prix Providence here. That, by the way, is Mark Calderaro taking the photographs of Wang. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to bring him over for a quick word.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, we're gonna get a chance to chat with him in just a moment here. We saw he was getting ready, but wow, that was a crazy finish to what was ultimately a really fun tournament. The standard format right now lends itself, I think, to coverage pretty well. The decks are punchy. They know what they're trying to do. They're relatively quick. Even the control decks tend to finish the game relatively fast. You know, Gear Hulk's just smashing into the red zone.
You also have exciting big finishes. You have things like Ishkana activations ending games. You have, Emrakul the Promised End, essentially ending games. You have Gear Hulks coming down. You have Fleet Wheel Cruisers attacking from out of nowhere. This is an exciting format. Flash creatures on end steps killing people out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's great.
Also very diverse, right? We saw, a red-white based vehicles deck, some of them with black mana, some of them not, taking one distinct approach. We also had the blue-white flash decks, only playing stuff on your opponent's turn, which is a completely different thing than we see from these copter decks. And, of course, the black-green Delirium, much more into the mid-range. These, by the way, were the more mid-range versions, both of them. I would say that that Wang's deck was a little bit more aggressive, but still it didn't look like the one that like Eric Froelich played at the Pro Tour, for example, that
still
looked
bigger,
properly assertive. Yeah. And then of course, there was some kind of wacky control decks out there too, 4 colors, both in aggro and control we saw this weekend. So lots of fun stuff here from Providence. And we're going to be winding things down here as we get Wang Yichen ready for his quick interview, and then we'll come back to us and we'll be signing off. We do want to say thank you, though, of course, for hanging out with us for the weekend. We know that we're on for quite a while. We do 2 pretty long days here, but it's really fun. All right, so it sounds like they're ready for the interview over in the feature match area.
You have just won Grand Prix Providence. Are you excited?
Yeah, I'm so excited. I never thought it before. I mean, my goal is to went into the day 2 today. I mean, I played about 7 or 8 GPs before, but never got any day 2 record actually. So I never thought I can go to top 8 and even win the GP. It's beyond my imagination.
It's truly amazing. Congratulations. We're super excited for you. Something that some people might be very curious about is your inclusion of Sylvan Advocate in your deck. Is there a reason that you included it?
Yeah, I just before I play this GP, and I always keep watching the meta, and I saw that there's a lot of GB delirium, but they always use the flare. I mean, yeah, but I think the Sylvan Advocate is bigger than that, and it can be better than defense, and also it has vigilance. So I play that, and I don't want. That's all, and it always proves that it's very useful.
Yeah, it definitely looked very good in all the games that you had and seemed to do very good work in the last game. Was there any point in the tournament where you felt like, wow, I'm going to win?
I think maybe you mean the last round?
Yeah, in the last game.
I don't think so. I mean, Seth is make big pressure on me, and actually, I until the last time, I didn't feel I will win the game.
Yeah, it definitely looked like maybe you were a little far behind. Seth plays Umrakul, and then you just have the win, which is incredible. Was there any point going into the top 8 you had the lower seed? What did you think going into the top 8?
The top 8, I didn't think anything because it's just beyond my imagination. I mean, until now, I can't believe this is true. I mean, yeah. Even the top 8 is so far from me. Actually, I'm just a normal player, and actually, Seth is one of the best players in the world. So, he's also better than me. Yeah.
Not just one of the best players in the world champion. So,
the world champion.
Congratulations so much, Wang. You are a GP champion today. We're so excited for you. Let's send it back to the booth.
All right, thank you, Gabby. Great stuff there. And congratulations once again to our champion, Wang Yichen. Great work defeating a Pro Tour champion and a world champion on his way to getting the trophy here in
Pretty
Providence.
impressive.
Yeah, it was great stuff. That is going to do it for our coverage of GP Providence. Again, I want to thank you at home for hanging out with us and watching. We really appreciate it, and we value our time with you, and we know that your time is precious, and we wanted to thank you for spending it with us. Also want to thank TJ Collectibles. They're the ones who ran the event here. They did a good job. Things went pretty smoothly, and hey, it's not even that late. It's only 7:30 here local time. So great work to TJ. Thank you so much for that. And of course, the judges and staff that help make these things possible, they are absolutely critical to the process here. And without them, we would not have these GPs. That is going to do it here, though, from Providence. So for everybody on the coverage team, Gabby Sparts, Luis Scott Vargas, this guy right here, Jacob Van Lunen, I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. We'll see you next time.